Hey everyone, it's Saoirse. I know it's been a long time. I went on a hiking trip and then I had to recover from that hiking trip emotionally. And I came home and read a book about hiking because I just can't get enough. I loved this book. This is You Are Here by David Nicholls, published this year, 2024. And he is the author of One Day. You might have watched this series on Netflix, maybe you read the book, maybe you watched my video about the book. That came out earlier this year, and I was totally crazy about the series, and then I read the book. And it's a different kind of genre for me because I don't tend to read anything that could be classified as romance, though this is definitely not like, the romance, the sweeping romance genre, whatever. It's a love story. And I just don't even really read those. You know, I'm alone and I like to read things about other people who are alone, but actually, I have found lately that reading and watching these things, it doesn't upset me like I thought it would. I thought I'd be like, oh, I'm so jealous that I don't have love and I can't read these stories because it makes me sad. But actually, this made me really happy. And was a nice break from the depressing things that I usually read. So I'm going to read you the jacket here. Michael is coming undone. Adrift after his wife's departure, he has begun taking himself on long, solitary walks across the English countryside, anything to avoid the empty house. Marnie is stuck. Hiding alone in her London apartment, she avoids old friends and any reminders of her ex-husband. Holed up with her books, she's battling a sense that life is passing her by. When a persistent mutual friend and some very unpredictable weather conspire to toss Michael and Marnie together on the most epic of hikes, neither of them can think of anything worse until, of course, they discover exactly what they've been looking for. It says it's at once hilarious and profound and uplifting story of first encounters, second chances, and finding the way home. I think this jacket description is a little bit much. This definitely was not an epic hike. I would not call it an epic hike. It is a ramble in the English countryside. It was quaint and nice to read about, how tame hiking in the UK can often be because it's so easy to stay at pubs every night. There's like the first time I did the West Highland Way in Scotland, I did stay at a hostel or a B&B every night along the way. Then a few years later, I went back and did it again, wild camping. So you can do that, but you can also do what they did in this book and just like stay at nice places every night and have a hot meal. It's wild, and very different from what I just experienced. I was hiking on the John Muir Trail in the Sierra Nevada in California, which is like extreme backcountry, and there is not so much as a privy, let alone a pub. So yeah, trail romance. They meet while they're on this walking trip, that they've got mutual friends, and I just couldn't help thinking of my own trail romances. It seems like most of the time when I've gone on a long hike by myself, there's just something in the air that creates, it's just easier to begin a romance. And I mean, I've had three that went beyond the trail and tried to continue back in the normal world, which doesn't work for everybody. Didn't work out for me, but I love the way that he captures that feeling in here of being in the outdoors and how that allows us to be more open. There's just something about walking as well. I think he even mentions it, that when you're walking, you aren't looking directly at somebody, so it's easier to talk, and you're also doing something with your body. You're being active, and I think it makes it easier because you have this other thing going on, this sort of distraction. So it's not all like the words I'm saying, oh my God, there's so much weight to these words. You're doing something. So yeah, it really lends itself to love, I think. And and desire too, and passion, because what is more passionate than like watching a sunset outside in the wild where you feel like you're the only people in the world. Nature itself is very passionate, and I think when we're out there for many days at a time, we kind of, at least I become this sort of like animal version of myself. I'm like, it's me in nature, which is the way I'm supposed to be, and I feel like a very visceral version of myself, which like can definitely be very sexy, even though you're dirty and gross and in pain most of the time. So love, love, love the setting for this, like the setup, the scenario, if you will. I love that he has maps in here. So he's doing the coast to coast walk. And I don't know if I'd heard of that trail before, but now I really want to do it. There's a lot of nice walks in the UK, and most of them I haven't done because I just went and did the West Highland Way twice for some reason. So let us read some quotes that I liked. There's so much in here that was funny. I actually laughed out loud at one point. And yeah, to read a book where there's love and it's funny, and like, I don't know, I'm used to reading stuff where I'm crying and being really emo. And I love how well he can write a man and a woman in the same book, and like he's writing from both perspectives. It's all third person, but he's able to capture this real experience for both of them, and I don't know how he does that, because he did it in one day as well. Like, usually when a man writes a female character, I'm like, this doesn't ring true, it doesn't feel right, you're not getting it because you don't have the experience. But he does a great job, because I was really like reading Marnie like, oh my god, this is all me. Yeah, which is a sign of a good writer. So let's dive in. Year by year, friends were lost to marriage and parenthood, with partners she didn't care for or who didn't care for her, retreating to new, spacious, ordered lives in Hastings or Stevenage, Cardiff, or York, while she fought on in London. Others were lost to apathy or carelessness, friendship like a thank you letter she kept meaning to write until too much time had passed and it became an embarrassment. And perhaps it was natural, this falling away. Real life was rarely a driftwood fire or a drunken game of Twister, and it was part of growing up to let go of those fantasies of perpetual skinny dipping and deep talks. Yeah, when you get older and all your friends start getting married and having babies, you just don't really see them anymore, and it's sad. I really felt like very, like I really related to her, the way that she is single, and it's just her in her flat, and she works from home, and it was all very familiar. She's got this line about texts. It would be nice to feel the warmth of another body in bed, or to get a text that was not an authentication code or scam. And I just think about how every text I get is like, this is a sale we're having right now. It's because I've signed up to get 10% off of something 6 months ago, and I'm still getting the texts. Yeah, like I'd say like 90% of my texts are that. And every time, I see I've got a little notification, I'm like, it could be. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Like the love of my life is just gonna suddenly have my number and text me. At home, he was merely lonely. Stepping outside transformed loneliness to solitude, a far more dignified state because it was his choice. That is a really good distinction, loneliness versus solitude, because we often seek out solitude to get away from the noise of everything in our lives. But to feel lonely, that has a very negative connotation. You can be content being alone, of course, but lonely just, yeah, it has that feeling to it. When you hear that word lonely, it's not something that you would equate with, feeling happy in your solitude. And that is a nice, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Words are so hard. It's the way that he said that, the going outside, like choosing to go on this hike, is choosing solitude. And let me tell you, I I feel like when I hike, I'm almost always alone when I go out to hike, whether it's a day hike or a through hike. And the thing is, I always meet people, and so I never really think of it as I want solitude. I think I'm going alone at the beginning so I can go like make new acquaintances and things. And on the JMT, let me tell you, that did not happen. It was so isolated out there. There was just almost nobody um, even walking in the same direction as me. So people would pass me going the other way. It was very, very lonely. That was loneliness, not solitude. I might have had a couple nice moments of solitude, but it was mostly loneliness. There's this nice quote in here from Keats. It says, "I will clamber through the clouds and exist. I will get such an accumulation of stupendous recollections that as I walk through the suburbs of London, I may not see them." Love that. Because I think about like what do we bring back from a hike? We bring back this feeling that we got, this new perspective that we can only get by going out and doing this thing. So if people ask me, why do I do it if it seems like it's so difficult and I'm always in pain and I'm lonely and all this stuff? Well, I do it and I keep going back and doing it because of this feeling of learning something every time, and because when you do something that scares you or challenges you and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you feel like you're the only person in the world and that feeling scares you. That puts a lot of things into perspective. And I remember just taking so many like mental images of this barren landscape and like feeling like when I got home, I would remember that. And okay, this is really hard to put into words actually. Sometimes we see views that inspire us and make us happy in the moment, and sometimes we see views that terrify us. And I think most of what I saw on the JMT terrified me and felt very desolate. And that and the nice views that I tend to see like on the East Coast, on the AT, they both have the effect of reminding me how small I am in a big universe and how powerful the earth is. And it just gives you this shift that I think allows you, if you remember these lessons, to view everything in a different lens, to kind of be separate from the thoughts of like, oh, this stupid silly thing matters, this like I'm so worried about this that most of it just doesn't matter, and it's just stuff that we freak ourselves out with on a daily basis. That was a lot of explanation, and I don't feel like I explained anything. So, oops. So he's really good at characterization. I've noticed like all the characters all the side characters are so vivid. Everybody's just got their own personality, and that is such a talent to be able to do that as a writer. I'm so jealous of that. I feel like I write kind of the same main character every time and like a stock silly character, and it's so hard to differentiate between personalities. And he's just, I don't know what his process is. I don't know if he like writes a bunch of character study stuff and then like feels like he really knows them and then can do the dialogue, because there's so much dialogue in this book. It's mostly two people, walking together. So it's just a lot of talking, and that's what I noticed in One Day is he's just incredible at dialogue. It feels really natural. And it's like is he talking to himself when he's writing? Like how is he getting this back and forth that sounds like it's two different people? Anyway, characterization. As if on the subject of handsome, another man stepped forward, perhaps the most handsome man she'd ever seen, so handsome that she gave a little laugh, and he smiled at her laugh as if to say, "I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it?" I just thought that was a great moment of like how she would react to a man that handsome, how a man that handsome would react to being reacted to. And just the idea of somebody laughing because they know how ridiculous it is that they're that good looking. It's really funny. So when you are hiking and you meet somebody that you fancy, there's this whole issue of the fact that you're disgusting because you've been outside for a long time. And I liked this bit. Her nose was blocked, and yet some kind of liquid, some unnameable salt-sweet combination of snot and sweat coursed down her philtrum into her open mouth. She might put a finger to her nostril and blow like a footballer, but was there a way to do this coquettishly? To hawk and spit with elan? To kittenishly throw up? To kittenishly throw up. I just think of it, the one time, oh my god, that I puked so much on the long trail in Vermont. And that was more than 5 years ago, my claim to fame. I've not thrown up in 5 years because it was such an epic vomiting session. I don't know if it was food poisoning from some trail magic that people had done on the side of the road, or, well, I don't think it was like Giardia, but I don't know. I mean, I was filtering my water, but oh my god, there was nothing kittenish or coquettish about it. I was vomiting my entire soul and life out of my body. So yeah, there's not much you can do. You're trying to be hot and sexy while you're hiking because there's somebody you really think is attractive out there. And it always makes me wonder how the person that I find attractive, how in the hell are they looking so good? How do they look so nice and gorgeous and I look like there's not even a word for how gross I am on the trail. And I sort of tried this time. I even brought I dehydrated some little wet wipes that I could kind of clean myself with in my tent. But it's kind of just a lost cause, So that adds a whole other element. And it's it's a good thing you're meeting people out there who like doing the same thing because then they're kind of they don't care that you're absolutely filthy and you stink because maybe they're kind of attracted to that stink. Because the author goes on these long walks himself, he is a hiker, and somebody said, you should write a book, and he was like, well, nonfiction isn't really my thing, maybe I could write a story about it. Because he is a hiker and has this experience, he puts in all these great things that I recognize as a hiker, and I'm like, yes, it is like that. Marnie is obsessed with using a real toilet and charging all her devices. And it says, Marnie grabbed her bag and hurried up the narrow stairs to her room to use the toilet and charge all her devices. He mentions this a few times, and it is just this kind of panic thing about when am I going to be able to charge all of my things. I have so many things to charge. I just, you end up plugging them in when you don't even need to. If you just come upon a plug, you're like, my god, a plug. When I was on the JMT, this isn't about charging devices, but it's about throwing away trash. You also become obsessed with trash cans. And I found that there was a road crossing and there were these bear-proof trash cans, and I just unpacked my entire pack because my bear can was at the bottom and that's where all my trash was. Opened my bear can, threw away, probably less than an ounce of little wrappers, and I was like, yes, that's gonna make my pack so much lighter. And then anytime you come across a toilet, if you're on a hiking trip, it's like, oh, whoa, do I even have to go? I don't know, but I'm going to try because there's a toilet, because there's just something about it. You can go to the bathroom in the woods, but when there's a toilet, it just feels exciting. So I love that he put those two things in there. So Michael goes on these trips thinking he's going to clear his head. He's really upset about his divorce. Soon the patter on his hood became a kind of white noise, and he found himself approaching a fugue state. Was that the phrase? Free from the churn of his thoughts. This happened sometimes on his solitary walks, on a Northumbrian beach or deep in a forest as the light faded, times where he might find a temporary peace of mind. In these moments it was as if he were walking within some transparent bubble, like the clear jelly around the black dot in frog spawn. Then there were those other times, on some featureless fell, feet and fingers numb, profoundly alone, panic rising with miles to go, where he felt like a fugitive. Love that. I think nature has this way of making us feel either peaceful or pursued, and I found that recently on my day hikes in North Carolina. I was feeling very peaceful, and I like how he says it's like the black dot in frog spawn, surrounded by this clear jelly. Like, you just, like, nothing can touch you. You're in this really safe place. And then there are times, and this is more common on a long hike, like a through hike, where you know, oh my God, I've only done this much and I have this many days left, this many miles left. And maybe there's, questionable weather coming, and maybe you don't have enough food or your food's too heavy. There's just a lot of things that can combine to make that feeling of like being pursued, being, like he says, like a fugitive. I certainly felt that, the panic on the JMT when I thought of how many days I have left to do this and I'm still not meeting anybody, and like there's nobody to help distract from this situation. I might go into this later about why I decided to leave after 6 days when I had planned for 18. And it was the first time I had ever like let myself leave a through hike like that. Let's see. So yeah, there's sometimes the question of why am I doing this? For the first time you wondered, what's the point really? What's the point of this? No exorcism, no purging or clearing of the head, no sense of achievement. It wasn't even masochism, which was, he understood, supposed to contain an element of pleasure. Just profound misery as the rain fell harder so that it felt like someone was trying to hose them from the mountain. Definitely familiar with those moments. Where it is like, it's not even, like, it's obviously not type 1 fun, and it doesn't even feel like type 2 fun. It just feels like this is awful, and there's no reason for me to be doing this. Had a lot of that recently. They'd made it over the top, but the landscape was so stark that there seemed little to celebrate, the kind of place a location scout might propose as a hostile alien planet. And once again, I thought the JMT, this is the trail where I discovered that I am not into trails that look like a moonscape that is just all tumbled up granite, bare, not a lot of plants. My favorite parts were when I got to go through some meadows and there were marmots. Like, the rodents were the best part, but most of it was this moonscape. And I just, I realized that I prefer forests and feeling like safe in that, and not so exposed to the sun constantly. Excuse me, it's taking a while to turn my page. I mean, I like nature, but there's a lot of it. I bet even William Wordsworth every now and then thought it was all a bit much. I bet there were times when he and Dorothy must have been like, well, we've seen the chaffinches and the beavers and the shady bower, now tell me your top 5 favorite pageants. I like that reminder of, the fact that we don't have to limit ourselves to only loving one thing. I think a lot of people box themselves in, and especially like being part of the hiking community, I've noticed this, like, some people think there is one way to be a hiker, especially one way to be a through hiker, and like you have to be hiking all the time, and it has to be your life, and your social media needs to be all pictures of mountains, and it's like, humans are multifaceted beings, and we have many interests. I know some people do really focus a lot on one interest, but I've never been like that. I like so many things, and so while I want to go out and hike for a week and be in nature and connect with that animal version of myself, I also love to get dressed up 1920s style and go to silent films at a historic theater. There's just I feel no need to box myself into anything. So one of the things I love about this book is this feeling of like excitement and fun that is happening the whole time, and is exactly like, it's like he bottled the feeling of meeting somebody that you're excited about, and the idea of like getting to spend every day walking through the landscape with them. It's just, I've been there and it's thrilling, and he says, but this felt like younger days, almost like being a student, and he realized he had accidentally been lulled into enjoying himself. And I love that line about being a student. There's something, I feel like when I went to college initially in undergrad, I did not have like the college experience. I wasn't, I was just very like, I'm going to be old and serious and mature and like, I don't know, I wasn't like doing anything fun really. Um, or like that you would typically see as fun in college. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, and then when I went to grad school, I felt like I got this chance to do it over. And so I joined all these societies and clubs and sports and basically, yeah, that's what I was trying to say is like I didn't get involved in anything. In undergrad, I just did my homework, went to class. That was it. And this time I got super involved and had such a great time. And I love how they like both the characters, they're 38 and 42, I think, and they just feel like young when they're with each other because they're having these like feelings that we typically associate with like teenagers in love, um, which is just very thrilling. And it made me think of recently when I was on this trip and had to leave the JMT. I hitched to San Francisco, and I stayed in a hostel there, and I went to like the murder mystery pub night thing hosted by the hostel. And I looked around like while we're doing all this get to know you stuff, and I thought, oh, I think I am one of the oldest people here. And so I had a really fun night of just like feeling like I was young again and doing something that I didn't do stuff like that when I was that age. Um, and now at 30, going to a hostel pub night and like going dancing with strangers and stuff. It was nice to feel like I was living these moments that I'd kind of like I didn't let myself have when I was younger. Like I really just I don't know what it was about me. I would not let myself do anything like that because I just thought I'm better than that. And um, what's so fun about going dancing? It is fun. Okay. Um, could he ever? Oh, you idiot! Stop this now. Could he ever have the first without the second? Hang on, I'm gonna start that over. He was simultaneously drunk and acting drunk, a kid reeling after a sip of ginger ale with the particular sensation of being both inside and outside himself, finding everything silly and joyful and hilarious, and at the same time thinking, you idiot, stop this now. Could he ever have the first without the second? Stop watching over himself? Um, so, yeah, I just like this bit about, like, being in the moment and, like, wanting to be in the moment and not have this constant self-critic, like, sitting on our shoulder. It's so frustrating because like it is very hard, especially if you're type A person, to like just let go and have fun and be in the moment. And that is something that I let myself do when I was in San Francisco. And I think it was because I was coming from this kind of like you could look at as a disaster of a trip and um, what had felt like a big failure at the time. And so I was just like, who cares? I'm gonna have fun, and I have just like seen some shit and been through some shit, and now I'm gonna just um, be in the moment, and go wild, and enjoy it. Okay, we have so much left here. Okay, this was hilarious. This is where I laughed out loud. So Marnie says, "I've got 12 pairs of pants in here for 3 nights. Pants being underwear, British speak. Why? I don't know. Maybe I'm worried I might shit myself 4 times a day. Has that ever happened? Not since my honeymoon. I worried I might shit myself 4 times a day. Because when she first packed that much underwear, I was like, that's insane. Why would you need more than one per day? But then I thought, it happens. You can't be too careful. Like, you really might. It might happen 4 times a day. Just another one of those things where he gets that like hiker trash life. That being said, I would never bring that much underwear. That's absurd. Oh, this was sad. So she's talking about her failed marriage. We gave it a go, but he kept putting off having kids, which was suspicious. And it was as if, you know, that thing when you're watching a film that you're not really enjoying and the other person doesn't like it either, but you've paid for the rental, you're halfway through, you sort of want to know what happens, and besides, there's nothing else on. But really, you're just waiting for someone to say, "Can we stop this? I hate it." And neither of us did. Some people sit like that for their whole lives together, waiting for it to pick up, waiting for a good bit. We were lucky in that respect. It could have gone on longer. And I just thought, oh, that's all my relationships. Well, especially like the longest one I had where it was like, neither one of us want to be doing this. Why are we doing this? I guess we'll just see what happens for years. And it is not a good use of time. Don't do that. Please don't do that. If you both want to get out of it, get out of it. The tub was high-sided, beaten copper, as large and imposing as the Ark of the Covenant, and clearly built for two. With no other body present, Marnie was obliged to brace herself with knees against the sides like a sweep trying not to tumble down a chimney. Love that image. But also just being alone in a world that is built for couples sometimes. It feels like it really is. And to be a solo person in this world is just like an act of defiance that we never really asked for. We didn't want to have to do that. But now here we are, you know, like a chimney sweep trying to not fall into the depths of this bathtub that's for two people. And that's one of the examples of his phenomenal descriptions. And now I'm going to read like a zillion of those, so stick with me. Like the way that he compares things. Would you call this a simile? Analogy? I don't really know. Just the way that he compares stuff is so wonderful, and I don't know how he comes up with it. On the bed, she laid out the most glamorous of her 3 dresses, one arm kinked at the elbow, shoes on the floor to gauge how she might look if surprised by a steamroller on the way to a date. Like, you know, when you lay your outfit out flat, like surprised by a steamroller. I just wouldn't think to put things this way. He rehearsed jokes in his head and scratched at his beard with both hands where it met his collar, as if he were his own dog. Love that. He sipped his wine and tried to balance his book against the salt and pepper, but that wouldn't work, so he simply ate, chewing or rather letting the fish dissolve on his tongue like a lozenge as he stared into space, face set in the expression of someone who has tripped on a paving stone but is incorporating it into their walk. What a great way to say that, when you trip and you have to incorporate it into your walk. Like, you're just gonna pretend that that did not happen. I love this one. When Marnie is late for dinner, she looked both elegant and frantic, as if rushing for the lifeboats, apologizing from halfway across the room. Elegant and frantic, as if rushing for the lifeboats. That is a Titanic reference, if I have ever seen one, and I have seen many. So they hug, and she notes that he hunched forward slightly so as not to press against her breasts, as if leaning over a fireplace. They're just like, there's such fun, silly ways to describe things. Only Michael would miss her. Was that true? Each approach he made came paired with a nervous withdrawal, like someone returning to a sputtering firework. Was her company a pleasant surprise, or was she the party guest who won't go home? Love that. Love the firework part, and also that feeling of, oh my god, am I like bothering this person? I am incredibly socially anxious, so I almost always feel like I am bothering whoever I'm with. I feel like they cannot wait for me to be gone, and I'm really very concerned about overstaying my welcome all the time, to the point where like I do end up overstaying my welcome, because like more than I fear that, I fear leaving and then that person talking badly about me because I stayed too long. So I just stay forever, and then they can never talk about me if I just like do not ever leave their presence. It's terrible. God. Okay, moving on from those fun descriptions. The notion that I should be making the most of it, traveling the world or out every night, there's a kind of tyranny in that too, that life has to be full, like your life's a hole that you have to keep filling, a leaky bucket, and not just fulfilled but seem to be fulfilled. You don't have kids, why can't you speak Portuguese? Do I have to have hobbies and projects and lovers? Do I have to excel? Can't I just be happy or unhappy, just mess about and read and waste time and be unfulfilled by myself? Amen. This idea of like performative joy, having to like do everything that people think we should be doing while also telling the world about it, and acting like we are so happy and fulfilled by it. And also like we're not all fulfilled by the same thing. That's for damn sure. You know, not everybody wants kids and a like serious career. And then we have this fear of like people are going to look at us and think we're not happy because we don't have those things, when in fact we don't have them for a reason. We don't have them on purpose. Uh-oh, I'm talking about myself. It occurred to her how intimate, how significant it was to take someone's photograph for the first time and add them to your library, like a book that you've read, or at least started reading. Why else use the word library? Yeah, so that makes me think about seeing somebody as a book that you put in your library, as like this part of your story. Maybe they're a whole story or they're a chapter in something, and you want to see how it ends. And I have gotten myself into trouble with that. How many times have I stuck it out with somebody, with a partner, with a situationship, just to see where the hell it goes? And let me tell you, it didn't go anywhere. Here I am. It doesn't go anywhere. And yet, well, sometimes it goes to terrible, horrific places. And then I go, well, at least I figured it out. And it's like, girl, you knew. You probably knew that it was going exactly there. And you kept following the path. Reading the story, if you will. Anyway, moving on before I spiral. With no expectation, he had spent 3 days in the company of a nice new human being, and now he was going to ruin it by wanting more. Like one last drink or coffee after dinner. After dinner. Like missing the last bus, a good time was going to be ruined by wild excess. Yes, I do this all the time. Especially like if I'm having a good time with somebody, I'm like, oh, let's spend our lives together now. You have tomorrow free, let's spend all day tomorrow together because we had such a great time all day today. And I don't know if I don't think I'm boring, and I don't think I'm like too over the top in your face, like let me take all your energy and suck it out with my mosquito nose or proboscis or whatever the hell they have. I don't think it's like that, but yeah, some like people like me in small doses, and any more than that, and it seems to be a bit too much. I don't know. But same with like I've been around people where, yeah, I guess this is totally true the other way, where I get so tired of being around the same person, which is part of why I'm single. Because it would have to be a real special person for me to not go completely bananas, insane, seeing the same person every day. But yeah, there's always that, especially like in a situation like this. And I've met a lot of people while traveling, a lot of like romantic entanglements, and because you have such limited time, you don't know when you're going to see each other again. There's always this long distance issue. You feel like, oh God, we have to see each other constantly until we can't anymore. And sometimes it does, like, you know, the feelings overstay their welcome. You know what I mean? Oh, it's a cockroach. Okay, all right. 1 second. Okay, that was a nightmare. Luckily, the cockroach was heading toward the front door, so I said, could I escort you to the door, sir? and then we got into a brief scuffle, a battle, where I had to take my whiteboard and really escort him out the door, which caused me to then sort of wipe some of my notes off the whiteboard. But we're back now, and I think I figured out what I had written there. Being picked up. It was courtly and old-fashioned, and she had a momentary worry that it might not be proper, a single young lady out after dark with a gentleman caller. This costume drama atmosphere persisted as she was shown to her room. And I said, "Oh, how I love this. I love that feeling. You know, I'm an old-timey romantic. You know, Charlotte Bronte is my favorite writer. I love this. I love when I feel like somebody is going to pick me up at my door, and you know, I don't know. It's just so damn romantic and cute, and staying at like little quaint like B&Bs in the English countryside. I love this description too, where they're drinking at this pub, and it says he squeezed through the crowd, strangers smiling and clapping him on the shoulder as if he were going to collect an award rather than the next round. You know that feeling. You're having just such a good time. Everybody's having such a good time. And oh, I can't actually reach that. And you know, it's like, yeah, whoa, like you're doing a great job going to get another round. No one could have called her vain, but there was something very attractive about being found attractive, and perhaps attraction was like sound, the slightest whisper bouncing back and forth, amplifying itself in a feedback loop, until it became almost unbearable, until someone surely had to say something about all that noise. Which I thought was a great way to talk about like tension between people, the good kind of tension. Like, surely somebody has got to say or do something. And that's just an extremely fun feeling. So Marnie comes home from the trip early and is back in, you know, her like copy editing life. That's her job. She's on her computer all the time. This is how the internet felt, absorbing the fights and feuds she'd missed, the rage and the predictions of the world's end, until she got the old feeling back, tension tightening her shoulders, all sense of pastoral well-being gone. And that is one of the really sad parts about coming back from a hiking trip, and why a lot of people, like me, get post-trail depression, because you feel like you've had all these incredible experiences and epiphanies out there in the wild, and you come back and like nobody gets it, no one understands, and no one really cares, and you start to struggle to be able to translate those lessons into this world, which is just such a stark contrast, you know, the wild where we're supposed to be, like the way that we're meant to live with the land, and then coming back here and it's all like, you know, cars and taxes and clocking in and that sort of thing. And so yeah, that's a terrible, terrible feeling. Like I was very disconnected on the JMT because there just wasn't cell signal, and a lot of times I just had my Garmin satellite device, and it was kind of scary because like I couldn't contact my mom unless the Garmin really connected. But yeah, there was no, you know, social media, any of that, and it was nice to be away from that because God, it is such a horrible addiction. It's horrible. I don't think I ever feel better after scrolling through crap like that. But I do feel so much better when I put my phone away for a long time. She felt suddenly overwhelmingly alone, and this was absolutely fine and might only be a problem if you'd been anticipating something else. Yep. Yeah. You know, I'm most of the time, like, my normal state of being is alone, and most of the time that's fine because that's what I'm expecting. when I think there's going to be something else and then it doesn't happen or I get ghosted, that's when it goes from solitude to loneliness very quickly. Okay, here's the part the cockroach made me wipe off. Huh. You sound like you still love her, she said abruptly. There was a pause. Yeah, he said eventually, I think you might be right. And she wondered if this was how she was doomed to spend her evenings, listening to men who were heavy and dull with love for somebody else. And I wrote, my fate. It's always something like that. Some reason you can't love me. Met a lot of people who are very hung up on other people. And I just felt for her, having like gone through that twice. And just thinking as you're sitting there like, oh, this is it for me. Like I'm just gonna be the sounding board for men who are still hopelessly in love with their ex. There's this great paragraph about her pack from the hike being full of all this stuff, and it's like it's still there in the hall where she'd left it. It says the compass, the water bladder, the central fells, the mashed up protein bars. Who was this stranger? The stranger's clothes smelt of peat and old sweat, and she tossed them into the washing machine. It's just like this idea of this stranger. You know, I tend to take everything out of my pack immediately when I get home because I don't want that thing sitting there full of this other life. And it's very strange feeling going from living with just this pack and you know, you're so obsessive about it because I kept thinking on the JMT, I was like, my God, if I lose even one piece of this gear, that is it. That is a hike ending type of situation. Because there were times when I would have to like leave my stuff somewhere, and if someone had taken my tent or my sleeping pad or my quilt or my bear can or the pack itself or my poles, which I can't even set up my tent without my poles, it would have been really bad. So you've got this thing that has just been your lifeline. You've been relying on it. You've been carrying it on your back for miles and miles, and then you just kind of have it in your house, and it's this weird like other person there. So I like to get everything out and wash the clothes real quick and put everything away. So that's all the quotes that I'm going to read. I just thought, like, he is so brilliant at really showing the many tiny things that we worry about when we're developing feelings for someone. It's like this man, I don't know if he's married, I think so. Maybe. He's clearly got experience with relationships and understands intimately all the little just details of that getting to know you stage and the excitement and the fears and all the insecurities and the things that we carry with us from past relationships, the self-consciousness that like you're suddenly thinking about like this one aspect of your nose that you've never thought about before, and like, is that weird to them that my nose is that way? Like, are they seeing this too? Oh my God, they're not gonna want to talk to me anymore. It's just you totally kind of lose the plot when you're excited about someone, and he just makes that very real in here. And yeah, like I've definitely read love stories where it was just like, come on, this is ridiculous, this is cliche, but this just felt very real. Like these are two very real people. It was, you know, just like one day where I believed these characters, and in that case, I really didn't understand why they kept getting back. Like, why did they want each other? It did not seem like they were actually romantically suited, but I still was like rooting for them. But here I feel like they're a little bit more kind of in tune with each other, and I wish we knew what happened next, you know, because if you've read it, it kind of leaves off on like, you know, they'll probably get together, but who knows? So now I'm like, ooh, I kind of feel like I would enjoy everything that he writes, and I am glad that I'm not stuck in my, oh, I'm not gonna read a love story era anymore. Like, not everything has to be this highbrow literary fiction. Um, I had a great time with this book and made myself read like only 50 pages a day every morning so that I wouldn't read it all at once and be done and be sad. But now I'm sad. So, anyway, highly recommend. Let me know if you've read it and if you've read his other books and if there's others besides this in one day that you would recommend. And is that all I'm going to say? Yeah, I don't feel like this video is too long already. So, I've already talked about my hiking stuff kind of throughout. So, I won't go into it anymore. So that's all for now, and thank you for watching. Until next time, happy reading.